I've just finished The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman as an audiobook. Now, no spoilers, don't worry, but it got me thinking about this place. This place, Bolter's Lock, on the River Thames in Berkshire, has a very special place for my family. In the 1950s, my mum and dad would come out from West London to do their courting here. They'd come to the fresh air and the countryside of Berkshire to escape the smoke and the smog of West London. In the 1960s, they moved out of London to Berkshire to raise their family. And my dad was a Venture Scout leader and spent many years happily canoeing here on the Thames. Years later, when he died, it was here at Bolter's Lock on the Thames that we decided to scatter his ashes. And so this got me thinking about something that every funeral celebrant will be asked at some point, and that's ashes. So in this video, we're going to be looking at the traditions and practicalities of scattering and interring ashes. We'll look at the history of cremation in the UK and the growing trend towards direct cremations, the cultural traditions from around the world, and the role that celebrants can play in scattering and interring ashes. So let's get started. Cremation is now the most common form of body disposal in the UK. But it wasn't always the case. In Britain, cremation was illegal until the late 19th century. The first official UK cremation happened in 1885 at Woking Crematorium in Surrey, but burial remained the norm for decades after that. It wasn't until the 1960s when cremation finally overtook burials. Today, over 75% of people choose cremation. That shift was partly practical. Space in burial grounds was running out, but it was also partly economic. Cremation is cheaper than burials, but it is also cultural. Britain has become more secular and attitudes towards funeral rituals have changed. The pandemic saw a rise in direct cremation, where the body is cremated without a funeral, no mourners and no ceremony. It's a cheaper option, but it leaves many families without a moment of closure, and that's where celebrants can step in. Celebrants can help families with ways to mark the scattering or interment of ashes in a meaningful way. Different cultures have long-standing traditions and beliefs around ashes. The Church of England and Catholic Church discourage the practice of scattering ashes and instead prefer to inter ashes by burying them in a casket in the ground. For Sikhs and Hindus, scattering ashes in a sacred river like the Ganges is an important spiritual ritual. But for those far from India, any moving body of water that flows out to the sea can be used. The Thames, the Severn, the Soar, the Mersey, or even the English Channel. Speaking of the English Channel, a company called Wesley Offshore offers boat services for scattering ashes at sea. They even advertise on national radio. It's a reminder that while some families want privacy, others want ceremony, structure, and even professional guidance. But not everyone uses a celebrant. Many families scatter ashes quietly and privately, just as it was for my father-in-law, whose ashes were scattered in Dovedale in the Derbyshire Peak District, one of his favourite places to walk. Yet for those who do want a service, celebrants can provide a space for storytelling, reflection and ritual. As celebrants, we have the privilege of guiding families through meaningful rituals, including ash scattering and interment ceremonies. These ceremonies can be structured much like a traditional funeral service, just shorter and more intimate. An ash scattering or interment service can include a welcome and introduction, setting the tone and the purpose of the gathering. Eulogy and tributes, sharing stories, achievements and cherished memories of the deceased. Readings and poems, incorporating literature or poetry that resonates with the individual's life and beliefs. And music, playing meaningful songs from portable speakers in an outdoor setting. Symbolic gestures might include releasing petals or doves, or planting a tree, or mixing the ashes with soil in order to nurture new growth.
A moment of reflection, providing space for attendees to reflect or offer silent prayers. Committal, the actual act of scattering or interring the ashes with the appropriate words of a final farewell. And then closing remarks, a note of gratitude to attendees and information about any subsequent gatherings.
If an interment takes place a few months after the original cremation funeral service, then the family may want to revisit some of the elements of the ceremony.
They can also introduce new elements to add fresh meaning. This helps create a sense of closure. One reason families choose to inter ashes rather than scatter them is the desire for a permanent place of remembrance.
Many cemeteries and crematoria have special places for ash interment.
This allows families to return to the site for reflection on birthdays, anniversaries, or special occasions like Mother's Day or Christmas. Cremation and interment of ashes is a more cost-effective and space-saving alternative to burial, while still providing a tangible memorial.
In contrast, scattering of ashes is often chosen for its symbolic nature.
The act of scattering ashes is final. Families who scatter ashes at sea, in forests, or at beauty spots often do so because of the connection their loved one had with that place, rather than intending to return regularly. Beauty spots like rivers, gardens, forests, or beaches are often chosen because of the happiness the deceased had there, and with these memories, spouses and families take comfort that this is where their loved one will now remain. Scattering ashes alongside wild flower seeds can result in a beautiful, blooming space that becomes a lasting place of remembrance.
Some families choose a tree planting as a lasting memorial, mixing ashes into the roots of the tree.
The UK has relatively flexible laws regarding ash scattering, but some key points should be noted.
On private land, ashes can be scattered only after permission from the landowner.
Local councils and the National Trust manage many popular public spaces, and so it's advisable to seek permission from them before scattering ashes in parks or commons. Ashes can be scattered on rivers and the sea without formal permission, but it's recommended to follow the government's Environment Agency guidelines to ensure no environmental harm.
You should never leave, however, anything non-biodegradable, like wreaths or personal mementos. So whether it's the River Thames, the hills of Derbyshire, or the sea, ashes tell a story. So if you're a funeral celebrant or thinking about becoming one, understanding ashes is part of the role. For more information, help and support, please look in the links in the description below. And if you'd like more tips and inspiration on becoming a successful celebrant, then please like, comment and subscribe to the channel, and thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.